Well, I tell you what, as promised, Shavonda Sumter has returned to us. She started last week. We talked for about 5 minutes because there was a timing mix-up. And I'm not mad because having been a campaign manager and trying to move folks around, I know how that can be. I've done the campaign manager thing about 3 times now. I had my first loss the last time. I was undefeated. Had my first loss by like less than 100 votes the last time. So I know how that is trying to move the candidates around and get them to all their appointments. And Shavonda graciously agreed to take time out again this morning to come back and continue to share with us her plan and vision of how she would like to continue what she and Benji and others have started. So Shavonda, good morning.
Good morning. So I hear you're for hire for a campaign manager. Is that what you said?
I always say I'm going to hang up that campaign manager hat. And then when someone asks, I teeter-totter when I say, okay, let's try it. Because it's kind of like that competitive thing, you know,
Absolutely.
that competitive spirit. And I suffered my first loss. I was 2-0. I was 2-0, and then the third time through, I suffered my first loss. So now I'm 2 wins, 1 loss.
That's all right. It builds character.
Yes, it does. And especially when the race was so close.
Absolutely.
Back to what we're going to talk about, folks, in the listening audience. Every vote really does count. Don't sit home thinking my vote doesn't count, because it does. Some of these elections get down to within a 50 to 75 vote range. And especially when you start talking assembly and school board and state senator and even governor for that matter. But when you start talking these local elections, every last vote counts. And that's why Shavonda's here with this morning. She has been in the assembly. This is her 3rd term she's seeking.
It is.
She's seeking her 3rd term. She's been in there and has been doing marvelous.
Well, thank you. I think you bring me luck because I usually come on right before the election. So I'm holding you to it.
There you go. She has been doing marvelous. In the short time that she has been there, she has maneuvered and made her way up to the top ranks of the assembly.
Yes. God has been good in this endeavor.
Yes, he had. And I'm so proud of you. I don't know what to do because I've known Shavonda and Kenny since he was darn near a baby.
Oh, boy.
And Shavonda, whenever she entered his life, I said, Kenny, that's going to be the one.
17
sure
years.
Enough,
17 years. There you go.
Whenever we were talking, I remember the conversation well. We were at Mr. Cook's house. We were at Mr. and Miss Cook's house. We were standing out there on their patio. He was talking about you. You all were working on Pettiford's campaign together. And I said, Kenny, that's going to be the one. And sure enough, the next thing I knew, you all were getting married. So.
Yes. Divine. Divine. All on the campaign. And we're still doing it together.
I hear you. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about past accomplishments, what you've done for the last 2 terms and what you want to do for the 3rd term.
Sure. It's been a great journey, and I thank the folks and the voters who allowed me to serve as a privilege. My district represents Paterson, Garfield, Elmwood Park, North Haledon, and Prospect Park in Haledon. It's important to note that every assembly member, there are 80 of us, 2 per district. I have the privilege of also serving with Assemblyman Benji Wimberly. We've been running this race. This is our 3rd term. If we are privileged and blessed to be elected by the voters again, it's just been an awesome journey. There's so much at stake. We have a $34 billion budget that's still not reaching the masses, if you will. Our economic growth rate in the state, we're still in the bottom tier. We're number 48 out of 51 United States. And we're also lagging in our poverty rates. We're lagging in our affordable housing. We're lagging in the funds that we allot for education. So the importance of being at the table in Trenton is to make sure that we right some of that allocation or those allocation issues, to make sure that it's filtering down to the people. The good folks of New Jersey, we pay our fair share, so that's not at issue at all. We want to do what's right. We have our businesses that want to come into our state. We just need to make sure that everyone has an opportunity. So that's what we're looking forward to going back to do.
For those of you in the listening audience, if you want to call in and you have a question for Assemblywoman Sumter, the number is 973-720-2738. And I'll say it slow because I know how it is listening to radio and they say things so fast. 973-720-2738 if you'd like to talk to Assemblywoman Sumter live here on WP 88.7 FM and Brave New Radio. You can do that regardless of where you're calling from the world. But those of you in the New Jersey area, and do understand, this is not just a Paterson race. While Shavonda and Benji may reside in the city of Paterson, they are covering a district that covers multiple counties, not counties,
Yes.
multiple communities. That's what I'm
You're
looking
right.
for.
Yes.
It covers. So for those of you listening in Wanacue, and for those of you listening in all these various areas, matter of fact, you all hear it better than the folks in Paterson do. Paterson, it comes through staticky, but in these other areas, the outlying areas, you all get a real clear connection. But if you're listening in those areas, Shavonda will be representing you as well and has been representing you. So if you have questions, feel free to give us a call. I get you on the air and you can talk to her live, 973-720-2738. Shavonda, there's a movie called Keep the Faith, Baby. It's about Adam Clayton Powell Jr. And one of the questions that the reporter asked Adam in the movie is, of all your accomplishments and all the bills and everything you're in, which one is your favorite? And his response was, well, that's like asking me which one of my children is my favorite.
Yes.
But I'm going to ask you that same question. Out of all the accomplishments that you've had in your tenure, which one are you most proud of?
Well, let's say this. As far as all my accomplishments, I had last year, I passed the most bills into law. So working hard with my team, making sure that we move bills and understand how the system works. I have a passion for them all, so I can appreciate that comment. But I go for the logical solutions. Some of them include access to mental health services, which is a passion and a vocation for me professionally. I work as Director of Behavioral Health at Hackensack UMC Mountainside Hospital. I've been in that career for 15 years, impacting and changing lives. Access is a critical issue. Streamlining the process so that people can connect with services, that family can receive the supports. I do legislation on that behalf. I'm vice chair of the Labor Committee, making sure, again, that we have livable wages is what I like to say. I actually lived through the tenure where we raised the minimum wage. When I can tell you the calls that we received from changing that rate made the difference in people's lives, where they can actually pay their rent and buy groceries, makes the difference.
It's interesting that you would say making a difference in people's lives. My guest that I had on this morning was a fellow educator. She was calling out of Milwaukee, I believe, or St. Louis, one of the other, I'm not sure which, but it was Central Time. And we talked for an hour and a half about how educators make life better for others.
Absolutely.
In terms of being a politician, because many times people frown on the word politics and politicians, yet I just heard you say something about making life better for others. Is that kind of like is that what drives you as a politician?
Sure. And it's hard. It took me a long time to accept being called a politician as all of the accolades that I receive. But there's some good that you can do. I keep service first. I keep people first. If it's not impacting people, I give it a second thought. I really need to know what's going to be the trickle down effect, if it's going to do harm versus if it's going to do good, how it's going to touch someone's lives. We're hurting right now, and I think we need to get back to the basics. I always say I'm a transformational legislator versus a transactional legislator, and there's a very, very different meaning in those terms.
Now, for those in the listening audience, anytime I interview assembly or what have you, I always kind of go back to the basics, as Shavonda was just saying, to even define what assembly is. Because I remember years ago, like 30-some years ago now, John Curry came to me one day and said, why don't you run for assembly? Run for assembly. And I didn't even know what assembly meant. I was looking at him like, I don't even know what an assemblyman or assemblywoman does, and you want me to run for it.
Sure.
But so let's talk a little about and I know what it is, and I'll let you answer, but I have a way of keeping in my mind straight of what it is, but I'll let you tell. What is the assembly?
I like to break it down to its most finest points, meaning I'm just like a city council member, a lawmaker for the state. I actually have that question often. What is an assembly person? We make laws that impact the state. So versus on the council, city councils, they make laws that impact the city. It's our rules that we come up with in legislation that the governor has to sign to become law before it's implemented. So our frustration, of course, here in New Jersey is having an absentee governor who has not been in touch with the state of New Jersey. Is running on a national campaign when we still have our ailments here in our state. So it has done harm to us and our ability to move our state forward.
All right, folks, you heard what the assembly does. I tell you how I keep it straight in my head. I kind of look at the assembly as the same as Congress and the Senate. So just like you have the state Senate and the assembly, that to me, the assembly acts as the Congress, just like in the United States, you have the Senate and the Congress.
Why, thank you.
That's Straight in my head that assembly is just like the same thing on the state level as Congress on the United States level. And in terms of, you brought up the governor, he seems to be, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe because I'm an educator, I'm biased, I don't know, but he seems to be anti-education. I don't quite understand that, or at least anti-public education.
Yes. It's frustrating because whenever public educators or our education system is villainized, when you serve such a vulnerable population versus embracing it, we don't have the federal partnerships that we should have with our public education system. We don't have all the resources that we need in our urban districts and even some of our suburban districts. We have some of the oldest school facilities across the state in the country. So that investment should be there. I am proud to say that on a higher education piece, since we're here at William Paterson University, another signature legislation was a higher education bond, which has allowed our public universities to access capital so that they can invest in infrastructure. New Jersey needs new infrastructure, or we need to maintain the infrastructure that we have. There's a cost to that. Also, part of the recovery of the United States when we were in the Great Depression was putting people back to work on our infrastructure. We haven't done that type of investment, especially under this governor. In fact, we've done less than under any other governor in the state of New Jersey. If we get back to basics, our economy will grow, our infrastructure will be competitive, our businesses will have partners in the education system that can train and educate the workforce that they need, or we can have our students who will create business opportunities. It's not rocket science. If we embrace educators and education, it would make for a better New Jersey.
When we started the interview, we talked about how quickly you moved up the ranks. Talk a little bit about the position you're in now in terms of, I forget, you told me the title last week, but it's deputy something or?
I started this session as a deputy speaker who serves at the pleasure of the speaker. If the speaker is not available, then I fill in the gap. Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman won her election, a midterm election, early last year. She was the majority conference leader in the Assembly. Majority conference leader is led by the Democratic Party because we have the majority of seats in the Assembly of the 80 seats. I now have the honor of serving as the majority conference leader, which means when we're in caucus, I get to call on who will speak. We establish the agenda for the bills that we will hear and the priorities that will be established for our legislative body.
In terms of various committees that you serve, which committees are you on?
Sure. This term, I remain on Health and Senior Services. Again, a passion for me to make sure that everyone has access to health care when they need it. Folks may be hearing a lot of talk about Planned Parenthood service cuts and women's health care cuts. We're facing those same things here in the state of New Jersey. So access has become a challenge. Our federally qualified health centers in the state of New Jersey is struggling to take on additional patients. Our providers, reimbursement rates, all of those things are a priority for me. Heroin addiction was a big topic for this year. The city of Paterson actually was faced with the heroin epidemic because it's pure and it's cheap. So we need to make sure that we stop that pipeline and do all we can to get people help from the addictions. Also vice chair of the labor committee, which is critical because, again, we need to know what type of policies we're putting in place, what type of incentives for businesses and companies to stay in the state of New Jersey, what type of workforce needs that we have. Paid sick leave is a conversation that we've been having this entire term. Some of the municipalities have set up local rules, which creates its own set of challenges because then when you have a business in multiple municipalities, it's not clear how that would be enforced if an employee works in one municipality versus the other that doesn't have a paid sick leave program. So we're really trying to streamline some of those things. That's the benefit of the state body working with the local bodies to establish policy. And then I'm also on law and public safety, which has also proved invaluable. One of the signature pieces of legislation, if you will just permit me, was juvenile justice reform, which had not been touched since the 1970s, and I was actually born in 1974. While our system is good and the correction officers do a great job, we had a system where we were remanding youth to adult prison without notifying them of being remanded to adult prison. So their rights were actually stripped from them. We also were isolating them. They had to go into seclusion when they went into an adult system because cognitively they were not of an adult mindset, let alone age-wise. Scientifically, it has been proven that our youth, our juveniles, do not have the maturity at 14, which is when they were being remanded to an adult prison system if the crime was of a first-degree nature. No cognitive ability. We moved that age to 16. We also made sure that they were notified that they did have due process, could have representation for those type of hearings. The other reality is, which was alarming, of the juvenile justice population, the majority of youth in that system, 70% are African American males, average age 16. Another 20% are Latino males. So our African Americans and our Latino American males have received a tough time at it. We need to look at additional reforms, which we are talking about in alternatives. We're not trying to not allow the crime to fit the punishment, but we really need to look at the population and why. And I do think if we focus on education, it's more cost effective, more impactful, a societal benefit for our young males, should we choose that route to invest our dollars versus in increasing the number of beds in juvenile detention centers.
Absolutely. So now, as you're seeking re-election for your third term, what are you looking to do in that third term? What do you want to do? What's your vision? My vision in my third term is to put people back to work. It's hard to get to other priorities and say, hey, you need to have health insurance, even with the Affordable Care Act, which gave people the ability to buy an affordable plan. It's hard to make that a priority when you don't have a job that you're making a livable wage in. So we really need to look at how we're putting folks back to work. Our college students are being saddled with debt when they leave these institutions, and then they can't find a job that's going to pay them the means. The other piece is that we need to look at corporate relationships. By that, I mean this new generation versus your generation, my generation, we were loyal to companies. This new generation is loyal to people. So again, how do we get back to a time where our young people who are coming out of schools will feel valued by their employer and their employer will value them? It needs to be a two-way street. So really start having those conversations where we're elevating them, where we're partnering with higher ed, where we're partnering with high schools, graduates, making sure that their curriculums are effective for today's times, making sure that they have the technology, because that's another deficit that we have to meet the demands of these corporations. So I'm looking forward to discussing those tough issues. We're also going to deal with the pension issue for the public sector, which is another challenge to our state budget on how we're going to pay our portion of the bill. The employees have paid their fair share. We've asked for a set amount. They've taken the additional amount out of their paychecks. They did their part. State hasn't been able to pay their bills. The Assembly, we've offered quarterly payments, which would decrease the tax portion for not paying full payments. The governor has said no, which would have saved us millions of dollars. So we really need to be rational. We need to be conscious that we can't afford to waste any dollars and allow any opportunity to pass us by where we'll be saddled with more debt, but making sure that the state is also paying its bills. Listening audience, if you've just joined us, and I hope you've been with us actually since 6 o'clock this morning, because the conversation has been intriguing as well as informative and fun. My guest in this hour has been Assemblywoman, or shall I say is Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter, and she is seeking her third term as Assemblywoman in the 35th Legislative District. Now, when Shavonda is speaking, or Assemblywoman Sumter is speaking, she's not, and when I say this, I'm not trying to be offensive, or I'm not trying to be anything other than I'm trying to get you to understand where she's coming from. She's not one of these hoity-toity folks that's able to go do this, and because she has servants and maids and everybody doing everything else in her house. She is also a mother, as well as a wife, as well as holds down a full-time job and doing the assembly. So the issues that she's speaking of, she's not addressing them just because she thinks it's something nice to address. She's addressing them because she lives it. How do you balance it and do it all?
I have gotten rid of the word balance from my life. There's no such thing. That's the first point. But I will say family support. I have a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old, a senior in high school, which proves challenging in its own right. Married for 17 years as we started this conversation. So again, a great partner, great relationship. Matter of fact, he's here in the studio. He's helping me get to where I need to get to. And that's also how we get some quality time in.
See, there you go. He's driving Miss Daisy. He's driving Miss Shavonda. That's right. That's because Kenny's sitting out there in the audience. He is right in the lobby. He is.
Absolutely.
And he's getting there from place to place. But I'm sharing all that to say, again, this is not somebody who's just doing this for the money. She's doing this because, one, she lives it. And you just heard her say she has a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old. She's putting things in place that's going to impact them as they grow older and they move around the state, or if they even decide to leave the state. What is it like to be in there writing? How do you write a bill? How does that come to be?
Oh, sure. Oh, that's the fun part. I love Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill. So when you mentioned Congress, and that was the PBS special that, of course, one of the first songs that I learned and enjoyed about government, political science major, but bills come from ideas. Ideas come from talking with regular people. I pride myself on having those conversations, listening to the stressors. I'll give you one of the early pieces of legislation that I passed that was common sense. Foster parents in the system. Their checks, they receive mailed hard copy checks. If something went wrong, you had to wait till the next month to get another check in the mail. Why can't we do direct deposit? I passed a bill to make that law so that we can automate that system. So things of that nature in the state that seems so simplistic, I actually had to write a bill in order for that to happen. So talking to people makes things happen. So when you think your voice doesn't count, it's important, your voice and your vote. When you're voting, make sure you reach out to that person you elected. Make sure you have a conversation to hold them accountable. Make sure they make time to hear from you. We have email now. There should never be a reason why you can't get a hold of your person, even if you can't get a face-to-face. We read our mail, we read our emails, at least I do. And I like to think that my counterparts who also take an oath of office do the same thing. So it's important to have that conversation with regular folk to generate ideas on what's wrong that may need to be righted by just changing some simple language. It's an amazing process.
It's interesting. I heard Shavonda just say regular folk, because that's what I'm trying to get you to see, that she's regular folk. That's why she can come up with the things that she's coming up with, because she's us. She's regular folk, and that's why, in terms of putting her back in office, we really don't. I mean, I know you're a politician, but we need somebody that's beyond a politician. We need somebody that's regular folk, a regular folk who is a politician that is dealing with regular folk issues.
Yes,
and Shavonda was right in terms of voice. As a matter of fact, you have an opportunity right now. If you want to talk to her, you can by dialing 973-720-2738. You can talk to her right now. But if not, certainly whenever you get on your email, you can email her as well as anybody else on that team, and they do respond. That's the other thing. She and Benji and the other ones on the ticket, they're very approachable. It's not as if you need to be afraid to be in their midst or to be in their presence. They're very down to earth. They're very approachable. They will listen to you and then take what you have to say and decide. I called Shavonda about some things that were going on in education. I called Shavonda about some things that I thought were weird. I mean, the one that you just said about foster care, wow, that was really weird. Mm-hmm. But I know there was some things in terms of child support. That was weird to me, that I called Shavonda and said, something needs to be done about this. Right. Too many folks are getting away with not paying their child support. There's got to be some things put in place. Now, I don't know if any bills came out of that or not, but those kind of conversations you can have with Shavonda you can have with Benji and anybody else who's on that ticket. And that's how she said how bills come into law. Because I starkly remember I pulled Shavonda to the side. I said, this child, these guys are getting away. And they're getting away with this child support thing. I pay mine on a regular basis, haven't missed a one. And then I got folks out there who haven't paid nothing and they're running all over the world and so forth and so on. So that's the kind of conversation, something down to that point you can talk to them about. And now they go back in session and say, you know what, I was listening to my constituents and they said, and they get on their various committees. That's how things work. So she's seeking your vote. Again, if you want to talk to her right now for the next few minutes that she's here, is 973-720-2738. She's done wonderful things in the 2 terms she's been in. Assembly term is what, 2 years?
Assembly term is 2 years.
2 years. So she's had 4 years in. She's seeking another 2. She needs your vote. Now we said this last week, and I was at a fundraising function with Shavonda and Benji on Monday night, and they could not be in a better spot in terms of voting. They are row A all the way. And that's one thing I kept hearing Monday night was row A all the way. And while I'm on here, everybody, any candidates running, they know of the show. I've had candidates who are running for assembly. I've had candidates running for congressman. Bill Pasquale has been on here. I've had candidates running for sheriff. Burdick was on here. Special's been on. I mean, so folks know about the show. They know the time slot, and they know all of them are welcome. I'm not privy or biased to just one party appearing. So anybody, I mean, I've had the freeholders on here. I've had Duffy and Lepore, and I've had, like I said, I remember them, Mutt and Jeff. They really, I mean, I've had all the parties on here who's been running for the various elected offices, city council, whatever. They all are invited. But I do know at this point now, we're right before election day.
We are.
So if they didn't take the opportunity before today, it's a wrap, because I'm not on the air anymore till next Saturday, and election day is Tuesday. And I'm working my way up to get your soul to the poll. And not just your soul, take more souls with you. Because I shared with you when I was talking earlier about having been a campaign manager. On that night, whenever the votes are coming in, you're literally sitting there watching a screen as the various numbers pop. And whenever they go from high to low and your competition is ahead of you, you hear the cheers and you hear the ahs, cheers, ah. And it is a nerve-wracking experience. So when I tell you every vote counts, I mean every. This is, I mean, even with the presidential vote, I know we got the electoral college, but when you get into the local votes, it's not electoral college. It is totally popular vote. It is one vote. It could be 100 to 99. And that person that has 100, they're in, and the person that had the 99 lost. So we need your vote on Tuesday. Shavonda, I don't know if you can encourage them anymore.
Sure. If I can just join you in those remarks. If you are in Passaic County, you actually can vote today at the county clerk's office at 401 Grand Street in Paterson. They're open from 8 to 4 p.m. So if you're busy on Tuesday, you can vote today, which is Saturday, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. We want to make it convenient. We also, on Tuesday, the polls are open in all of your areas from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. So you can get in there and hopefully cast your ballot for us. There was also the vote by mail option. If you have not mailed your vote by mail ballot back in, you actually can take it into your either municipal clerk's office yourself or to the county clerk's office. If you can't get there today, which is Saturday, then maybe you can get there on Monday or Tuesday. So you have every opportunity. We want to make sure no one's disenfranchised by any obstacles to get in there and vote. Also, on my team with me is the freeholder candidates. As Mark mentioned, we have Sandy Lazara. She is an educator, 4th grade students. She's running for freeholder for the first time. We also have Hector Laura. He's the freeholder director. And we have John Bartlett, who's also on my ticket with Assemblyman Benji Wimberly. The nice thing about it, and what I tell every person that I come into contact with, and it's been thousands at this point, from June until November 3rd, we've been talking to folks is we talk to our county government as state officials. We talk to our local government. We also talk to our school board members for the city of Paterson. There are school board seats, 3 seats that are up on the ballot. There's also a first ward council seat that's on the ballot for the city of Paterson. So voting is important. You have a lot at stake. This is the first time in 15 years that the Assembly has been at the top of the ticket. The statistical folks are expecting a low voter turnout. We need to prove them wrong. We've had turnouts less than 5% during the primary in June, which was the first Tuesday in June. It's your right. People bled, and that's men and women, for us to have this right to vote. We are making it as convenient as possible for you. I need your vote. I'm asking for your vote. I'm asking for you to exercise your right. So I want to thank you for this opportunity to share that message with your audience today.
One of the reasons I had Shavonda mention and explain what the Assembly does is because a lot of time what drives the low turnout is, one, people don't understand what it is they're asking me to vote for. They don't understand what the office does. And a lot of times, because if it's not presidential or mayoral or something like that, they won't come out. But they need to understand that each facet is just as important. None of them are no less important than the other. This election with Shavonda and Benji and the rest of the team is no less important than the one for President Obama or whoever's going to be the candidates as we go forth, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump and Jeb and all of that. It's no less important because they're all connected. They roll up into each other. The bills and laws that Shavonda and write and make here in New Jersey impacts what goes on in Washington and vice versa. Things that happen with the Senate and Congress in Washington impacts what happens with the states. They're all connected. So all of the elections are all important. There is no such thing as, well, this election is just school board. No, school board is just as important as Assembly. Well, this is just freeholder. No, freeholder is just as important as Senate. Well, they're all important. And I tell folks all that I don't care if it's dog catcher. I'm voting for the very simple reason that I know, one, the vote counts. People have bled and died, as Shavonda said, as well as the fact that, as I said last week, I would really have a problem with folks complaining who did not vote. Because it's like, well, you had a chance to change that. Your vote could have changed
Absolutely.
that person that's in there. Your vote could have changed the situation, or at least your vote could have changed the person that was in there who could have changed the situation. So for you to not vote and then be, given a lot of lip service, I don't put a bunch of credence in that. So if nothing else, when you complain, you can say, yeah, I voted for you, or I didn't vote for you. I voted for you, whatever. But at least you can say you were in the game. You were in the process, as opposed to a bystander just sitting back and spectating. And then all you want to do is give the armchair Monday morning quarterback thing when you didn't participate. So it takes a few minutes. Today, you can vote today regardless of your polling site?
Absolutely. You have to go to 401 Grand Street in Passaic County in Paterson, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., and you can cast your vote today.
So if you're a registered voter, and you don't have time on Tuesday, you can stop through 401 today and do it, or Tuesday, the polls are open early, 6 in the morning. Some go before work, some go after. Those who are retired and home in the middle of the day, you can go in the middle. But the bottom line is, please vote. I am passionate about voting because of knowing the history, particularly of the various groups. Women haven't been voting that long, believe it or not. African Americans have not been voting that long, believe it or not. Latinos, not believe it or not. There are groups of people who have not been voting that long in the grand scheme of things. So the fact that you have this, because the flip side of this, you may lose your right to do it. If folks start seeing that you're not coming out, well, hey, they don't care. They don't want to vote anyway, so let's take it from them. So come on, you have the opportunity to have a voice. Take it. Where are you off to? Any appearances? Anywhere? Where are they going to catch you between now and Tuesday?
I will be all over. So I'm off to the races as soon as I leave here. So I want to thank you for allowing me to come out early this morning. This was my first stop, so my voice might be a little rusty. But we're going to get it in there. I'm energized now. I'm charged up. I know there's some more folks I need to talk to, so they'll see me all throughout the district. It is that important that we wake people up to vote.
Well, I'll tell you what, this session is recorded, and so when I go home, I'm going to edit it, and I'm going to blast it out to all my social media sites, Facebook and everywhere. So if they didn't catch us live, they can listen to it again. I'll put the link. I'll have your picture on there. You saw me take your picture while you're sitting. I'll have your picture on there so folks will know they can listen to the message. But the bottom line is, get your butt out there and vote. It does not take long. Take your kids with you. Even if you have underage children who can't vote, take them with you so that they can see you doing it. So that they can get in the habit that when they become 18 and can register, hey, I saw my mom and dad do that. I remember when I was 5, they took me behind the curtain and I saw them push the button. I saw them make their choices. Model it for them. It's all connected. It is your right. It is your duty. Get out there and vote. Shavonda, any parting shots, any parting thoughts?
Parting thoughts is just, please, 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 we need you to vote. I'm asking you personally to exercise your right to vote. It's row A on November 3rd. If you're in Passaic County, if you're not, please make sure you vote respectively from whatever areas that you live in on November 3rd, Tuesday in the state of New Jersey. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. This is not just a Paterson thing. So don't get in your mind, oh, well, that's just No. This is 35th Legislative District that cuts across communities. Shavonda, while she may live in Paterson, Benji, while he may live in Paterson, they are serving all the various communities within their legislative districts and then some.
Yes. So we are honored to serve. We do it with pride. We know the importance and the gravity. We don't take it lightly. We're requesting to be your voice in Trenton, to have a seat at the table. That's a $34 billion budget that we are dealing with. And after we finish this race, if I am blessed again, I'd like to come back and join you, because I do believe that you bring me a special luck.
Well, let's keep that luck going, and Shavonda will be in there for her 3rd term. Thanks for stopping by, and I wish you much energy and everything else between now and Tuesday.